Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we speak to Indian Express's associate editor, who is in Sri Lanka right now, about the ongoing economic crisis in the country and its latest political developments. We also talk about the violent clashes that took place in Tamil Nadu after the death of a 17-year-old student. But first, we talk about monkeypox. Yesterday, a second case of the monkeypox infection was detected in India. The person infected, who is currently stable, was a 31-year-old man who arrived in Kerala from Dubai. It is important to note that the first case of monkeypox in India was also detected in Kerala earlier this month. In response to these two cases, the central government has sent a multidisciplinary team to Kerala to collaborate with state authorities in implementing the necessary public health measures. Now, monkeypox is currently witnessing a multi-country outbreak and has spread to regions like the Europe, the Americas, Africa, and the Western Pacific. In fact, in this current outbreak, the disease has so far infected over 11,000 people, spread across more than 50 countries. In this segment, we speak to Indian Express's Anonna Dutt about the disease and how worried we should be about it. Anonna, firstly, could you talk about what monkeypox symptoms look like?
So, monkeypox is a viral illness. It leads to rashes similar to what you would see in chickenpox. So there are liquid-filled rashes all over the body. That's what the disease causes. Now, monkeypox is not a new illness per se. It has been detected for several years in some of the West African and Central African countries where the disease is endemic. But why now it is in the news is because it is spreading across the world to non-endemic countries as well. So the cases have now been reported from, say, 50-odd countries across the world, and there are over 3,000 cases, which is something that doesn't usually happen. Monkeypox cases are usually restricted to a limited geography, which is why there is such a focus, and WHO is also looking at tracking the number of cases that are happening, where it is happening, etc. So now we have 2 cases in India, and the government has already issued guidelines. They've informed the clinics, etc., to keep on the lookout for these kind of rashes with unexplained origin, especially people who have traveled to these 50 countries that have reported cases so far.
Okay, so chickenpox-like rashes and travel history to these 50 countries is something to look out for. But Anonna, can monkeypox be fatal as well?
So in most cases, it's a self-limiting viral infection. So you would get these rashes, you would get fever, some aches and pains, and it would get better in most cases. But yes, in some people, especially those who have a lot of comorbidities, those who have a weaker immune system, in children, in elderly, it can cause pneumonia, it can cause other skin infections, there can be other complications. And yes, it can be fatal in some people as well.
And how does the disease spread from one person to the other?
So monkeypox generally spreads through these scabs and the liquid that is filled in the pox lesions. So if you are in close contact, if you're living with a person who has monkeypox, if you're using the same linens, etc., the chances of spread are high. Then it can also spread through big respiratory droplets. That's like if someone is coughing or sneezing next to you and you inhale those droplets, then there is a chance you might get the infection. So if we compare it to COVID, initially it was thought that it was the respiratory droplets that spread COVID, but now we know it can also be aerosolized virus, which is very tiny particles floating in the air, which does not happen with monkeypox.
Okay, and considering that so far 2 cases have been detected in India, is there a risk of a big outbreak taking place here as well?
So it doesn't seem likely to spread like, say, COVID, because this is disease spread through close contact. It doesn't seem likely that, there would be a sudden increase in the number of cases, especially if we are able to isolate these people and they recover in the isolation, then it shouldn't spread to others.
And Anona, finally, could you tell us what the treatment of monkeypox looks like?
So there isn't any specific treatment for monkeypox. The treatment would mostly be symptomatic. So whatever symptoms you're getting, the doctors would try to resolve that. They use some antivirals. There's some evidence that they have worked before with monkeypox. And other than that, there is also currently a vaccine which the US is using. This vaccine already exists. So that can be used, but for right now, because we've only had 2 cases, but mostly the treatment is symptomatic.
And next, we talk about Sri Lanka, which is facing an unprecedented political and economic crisis. Last week, after thousands of protesters had stormed the presidential palace in Colombo, the president Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country and later resigned from his post, which is something that people in the country had been demanding for months. And after this happened, the Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was made the acting president. And now, the country's parliament is soon expected to elect a new president. Indian Express's associate editor Shubhajit Roy is in Colombo right now, and he joined us on a call to talk about what lies ahead for Sri Lanka and how the crippling economic crisis is affecting the people in the capital. Shubhajit, last week the president Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country and resigned. And right now Ranil Wickremesinghe is the acting president. So how are things expected to proceed going forward as far as the political situation in the country is concerned?
Well, Shashank, the government of the day and the parliament is going to go for the elections of the president on Wednesday, that is 20th of July. The nominations will be called on Tuesday. We understand Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is the acting president, is one of the front runners, is the key contender. And apart from that, there'll be other contenders. The names that are doing the rounds are the opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca, who used to be the army chief when LTT was defeated. So there are these players. So that process will take place in the parliament on 20th of July when a new president will be elected by the parliament of Sri Lanka.
And how have people reacted to all of this? Because they have had huge problems with the entire political system, which Wickremesinghe has been a part of, and some protesters even burned down his private residence last week. And people have also had problems with the presidential system that gives enormous powers to the president. So what do people have to say about how things are now going to proceed in the parliament?
Well, as you know, there has been a protest going on in Colombo and in Sri Lanka for the last 3 months. In fact, it completed 100 days on Sunday. And the protesters are continuing with the demand for resignation of Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is the acting president. They were earlier demanding for the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So their demand for Mr. Wickremesinghe continues. And as I speak right now, I am at the president's secretariat sitting. They have still occupied one room of the secretariat where they have set up a public library with books all around me and chairs to sit and read. The protesters are also protesting just outside. They have set up tents at what is called the Golface Greens, which is the coast of Colombo. Although the attendance is thin, but the protests are going on, and they will actually look at the outcome of the president's elections and then take a call on what to do next. If Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe is re-elected or elected as the president, rather, because people see him as someone close to the Rajapaksa family, it is likely that they will reject that particular outcome and protests could intensify. And then we would have to see that if there is possible confrontation between the protesters and the government led by the new president. So that is the state of play as of now. And it's worth reminding that Rajapaksas are finally out of the government, but many see Mr. Wickremesinghe as their candidate who is going to be the president, and that to an executive president, which has huge sweeping powers in the current governance system.
And Shubhajit, since he has become the acting president, has Ranil Wickremesinghe said anything about the protesters and these sweeping powers that presidents get in Sri Lanka?
No, he has not, but he has taken a hard line on the protests, calling them fascists and trying to portray them as people who are disrupting the law and order. And he has repeatedly said that, in fact, he's imposed an emergency on Monday, which basically gives powers to the police and security officials to detain, to arrest people ahead of the elections. So essentially, he's continuing with that system only. And his primary focus has been to tell the people that he's there to sort out the economy, resolve the economic crisis, to get bailout from IMF and aid assistance from other countries, including India. So that has been his pitch so far.
And Shubhajit, the economic crisis, of course, remains a major concern. There is a crippling food shortage right now. Millions are reportedly going hungry in the country, and fuel is practically over. You have been in Colombo for the past few days. What is it like for people there right now?
I mean, life is really tough for people over here. The fuel prices have climbed almost 3 times in the last 1 year. And as a result, food prices have gone up as well. I mean, I did a comparison which at a department store at a supermarket in Colombo over the last couple of days. And I found that from basic necessities like rice, wheat, flour, Maggi, to fruits, to vegetables, to even toilet rolls, soap, everything has become 2 to 5 times higher than what it used to cost last year. The hospitals are also facing trouble because there is lack of essential medicines. Doctors can't reach the hospital easily because of the transport crisis, because there's no fuel. People have been queuing for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. Senior officials in the government also don't have access to fuel. They have been waiting for 3 days, 5 days. People are working from home. Schools are closed because school buses can't run and ferry children to schools. Because of the fuel crisis, electricity power cuts are rampant, anywhere between 3 to 5 hours, depending on the area. So, overall, the situation is quite dire economically, and people are going through a lot of hardship, and that's why they have been coming out on the streets to protest since April this year, and it's been continuing till now.
And Shubhajit, how hard is it to get essential items like water and rice in Colombo right now?
So there is a rationing in the shops where you can buy like only one packet for one time or two packets in a time. Bottled water, the store I went to, they said you can only buy 10 bottles at a time. Milk powder, for example, is in short supply. So there also they have put restrictions on one milk packet per day. So that kind of restrictions and rationing is being done. So all this is quite causing a lot of hardship to the common people. In fact, not just the poor or the middle class, but even the elite of Colombo, they are suffering. So this particular crisis has really touched across economic, social strata.
A quick warning before we start this next segment. This story deals with an alleged case of death by suicide. On Sunday, violent clashes broke out between hundreds of protesters and the local police in Tamil Nadu's Kalakurchi district. The protest took place after a 17-year-old student died by suicide, and the school allegedly refused to take action against those who contributed to the death. In this segment, Indian Express's Arun Janardhanan, who reports on Tamil Nadu for the paper, joins us to tell us what happened.
So this incident happened on Wednesday morning. A 17-year-old girl was found dead at a school. It's a residential school near Kalakurchi. The exact place or the nearby town is Chinna Salem. So immediately after this death was reported, the police reached the spot. The body was found in the morning, and reportedly she jumped from the third floor. The body was shifted to the nearby medical college, where the postmortem was conducted by a team of doctors. There was also a suicide note recovered in which the girl spoke about the kind of pressure she had in the class, mainly about her studies, regarding the problems she had with a particular subject teacher. And one more teacher complaining about her poor performance, and she was claiming innocence, or she was asking whether it was her mistake that she fails to perform well in a particular subject, especially a science subject. And also, the suicide letter requested the school management to refund her annual fee back to her parents. And also, she apologized to parents and her dear one, some of her close friends, maybe from the class. Their names were written.
Right, and after the death of the student, we know that some people started protesting in the area and they even blocked the roads over there. And soon after, the local government made some interventions. What exactly did they do?
So, yes, like a DMK minister, Mr. Ganesan, and also VCK leader, one of the most prominent Dalit leaders in South India, Tol Tirumavalavan. These are the people were among those who visited parents. They were promised that a strict action will be taken. The parents were promised that the issue will be taken at the level of chief minister to bring justice to the family. And that had actually helped to control the protests. It was really not climbing up. But what happened was on Saturday, random groups in the area, they called for a protest. And it was said that justice for this victim's name, justice for the victim, and they appealed people to gather at the school on Sunday morning to protest. Even some of the messages said that we should come wearing black attire as a mark of protest. And that is how the mobilization of people happened.
Yeah, and this is the protest where some 2,000 people got together. And this was happening, of course, at the school on Sunday morning. And the police, we understand, already knew about it. So how many personnel were present there to sort of maintain the law and order situation?
So there were about 200 policemen and barricades erected in front of the school. And the people who were mobilized were not only local people, but also those who came from nearby towns, including Chinnasalem, Atur, and the groups who mobilized these public, especially youth, in their early 20s. So they were largely belongs to different political groups, including SFI, SDPI, Popular Front, and there is an organization called Makkal Adhigaram. So Makkal Adhigaram is again a left radical group. So around 10 a.m. this protest started. There were no leaders, but everybody was a leader on their own. So they tried to enter the school premise. And of course, there was a 200 policemen and a DIG, 2 SP rank officers were all deployed at the spot because they knew that about more than 1,000 people will be coming for the protest. So when they tried to cross these barricades, the police tried to stop them. There was a minor lathi charge. So that was the time when things actually went beyond the control. The stone belting started and a section tried to attack the school buses and a lot of people entered school campus. And they ransacked classrooms, principal's room, and even many furnitures, fans, many items have been taken out. People were seen taking all these things outside the school. Probably they had taken it to home. So that is how the violence started. And for the next 1 hour, it was beyond the control of police force, and there was a battalion camping at Ulundurpet, a nearby place. So immediately more force was called in. Some 500 policemen from Ulundurpet battalion was rushed to the spot. Around 12:30, everything was under control.
Okay, so in that sense, it seems that the violence took place in a spontaneous manner. But could you talk about just the kind of damage that was done and what action has the police taken so far?
So the kind of damages were, beyond imagination for the police force as well as the state, because some 15 buses were set to fire, including 3 police vans, 1 DIG rank officer, Mr. Pandian, and 2 SPs were among the 52 or 55 policemen who were injured in the stone pelting. So mainly some 350 people who were part of the protest have been arrested already. Police is using dozens of video footages circulated in the social media to identify those who were involved in violence. we can see that, every other youth who were part of the protests were shooting videos, and all these videos were actually circulated through different WhatsApp groups and social media. So that is how the probe investigation on the violence is happening. At the same time, the repostmortem has been ordered to rule out any other angles, whether it was a suicide or is there anything beyond that, a murder or any such crimes involved. So all these aspects to be probed. And the case has been transferred to CBCID yesterday from the local police. The DGP and the Home Secretary visited the place. Curfew has been imposed in the entire region, including Chinna Salem and this particular village where the school is located. All these places, curfew has been imposed.
Also, Arun, you write that apart from the anger over the incident, the death of the student basically, there were also some local factors that contributed to this violence. Could you talk about what those factors were?
So yes, the school situated at this particular place, it is actually a school with about 4,500 students. And there are two schools of the same management and largely residential, and all these students live in one hostel. And the school management was not popular among the local people because the locals had grievances for a long time that they do not give admissions to local people. There were complaints like they do not give any fee discounts to local people. And also organizations like SFI or others to engage in a violence, maybe for the fact that the school management is known for their pro-BJP affinities, like the school ground or the campus is known for being a venue for RSS programs, RSS camps. And a main official of the school management, the owners, is actually holding a key position, a Tamil literary wing position in the state BJP, Mr. Ravi Kumar. So there were a couple of other local factors also made this issue a little more violent, making the school a target. Meanwhile, the body of the girl, the victim, it is not accepted by the parents. And today, Madras High Court ordered a repostmortem, and the court also asked the government to form separate teams to arrest all these people.
And Arun, has any action been taken against the school officials so far?
Yesterday, after this violence, yesterday evening, police arrested the school principal and two school officials in connection with this death of the girl.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.